Since everybody likes to be all hush hush about money, here's literally every single thing I've ever done to make money up until now, what I did, how much I earned, what I learned from it, and how I got to this point, which is a 25-year-old making multi six figures on the internet, having never had a corporate job. Let's get into it. I'm Danae. I help women go get paid by deprogramming you from the noise so you can go out there and live a life that actually feels like yours. Yes, I've never had a traditional corporate job, and I'll get into all of the details and exactly how and why as I explain all of my earnings over the years. I've pretty much been running on experiments, vibes, a little bit of anxiety, and a zest for life, which has honestly been fun, and I want to continue living my life like this. I always used to find it super frustrating as a young person, especially someone who was in university and trying to get a sense of what my life could look like, when people are super hush hush about how much they make, or just generally the vibe that you should never tell anybody how much you make. I understand people who believe in the evil eye and all of that stuff. Personally, I'm on the belief that God has a plan for my life and nobody can infiltrate that in a way that it can completely disrupt my life. That's my belief. I also think transparency is really good. As someone who wanted to go a different route than a traditional 9 to 5, seeing women online talk about their earnings and the things they did and being able to just relate to them as a person and then see, oh, they did that, maybe I can do it too, really changed the trajectory of my life. So I kind of want to pass the baton on and be that person to inspire other women as well. So let's get into what you're here for. Also, to preface, all of these amounts are going to be in USD. I am a Canadian and I currently live in the UK. I've just moved everything to USD for the sake of clarity for this video. So technically, I got my first job in high school. This was actually the only job I've used a resume for. It's a Canadian restaurant called Swiss Chalet, and I was a hostess. I got paid every paycheck probably around 200 Canadian. So it was minimum wage and I was working part-time. So I would go on the public transit after school and then sometimes on the weekend, and I would just stand at the front, do hostess activities, nothing too crazy. And yeah, I did that all of high school. I would do babysitting here and there. I would probably get paid between $20 to $50 to do that. That was usually just family friends who saw me hanging out with my parents and were like, hey, we want to go on date night. Do you want to watch our kids kind of thing? But it wasn't really consistent. And I honestly, at the time, at that age, didn't really enjoy it. Then I went to university. So I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I went to a city that is 4 hours away from Toronto. The capital of Canada is called Ottawa for school. And that's important context because it was the first time that I was living away from my parents, which means I had more of a sense of responsibility. So while I did get scholarships, I also just took out the typical student loans that you can get for school. And in order to sustain myself, I got a job at McDonald's. And I actually didn't use a resume for this job because my dad had a friend who owned a franchise in Ottawa or something like that. And they knew the manager and then they got me into it, which was great. So I did have to do the whole interview and everything, but there were some plugs pulled to get me there. So I worked that job all of beginning my second year in university. In my first year of university, I actually just saved up all of my money from, I actually just remembered so I worked at Swiss Chalet, and then somewhere along the line, someone at my church bought a franchise of this restaurant also in Toronto called Chuck's Roadhouse. It gives exactly how it sounds, a meat, beer, roadhouse type vibe. They just put out a message that they were having a big hiring day for the launch. So I went to the hiring day. Of course, when I got there, I was like, hey, I go to your church, just so you know. And then I put on my makeup and I did the best I could at the event. And I ended up being one of the women hired. So that was great. And I worked there right at the end of my high school, right before I went to university away. So in the summers in university, when I came back, I would work at that restaurant because it was 4 hours away. So I would work at that restaurant. And then I also had that McDonald's job. And it was a typical minimum wage, but I was getting great tips. I would say on my best night ever, I got $1,000 because I had a massive party that their bill was like 10K or something. So I got a fat tip. But on a typical night, I would say anywhere between 50 to 300, 400. This is in Canadian. Everything else will not be in Canadian, but this is in Canadian because it was the physical cash tips, Canadian dollars. So that was great. And I saved all of that money in the summer. So my first year of university, I just lived off of my savings and my scholarships. And second year, I started working at McDonald's. Honestly, really liked working at McDonald's. There was, of course, really busy periods where you wanted to gut out your eyes and you had odd customers asking for odd things or being super entitled. But it taught me a lot about customer service. It also, oddly enough, taught me a lot about business, just seeing how at the back end of the business, how it ran, how they had everything really organized so that you could get the meal out as fast as possible. possible. My brain was thinking about that even when I had no aspirations for business because I thought it was super interesting. So that was a good phase. And I would spend my time as the cashier and doing the fries, making the drinks, thinking about who I would be. At the time, I imagined myself as a journalist. I was like, these guys don't know that they're working with the next big journalist. Of course, I'm not a journalist now, but still happy with where I am. And I'm grateful that I had that start. So if I haven't said it already, I was getting paid around $9.66 an hour. And I had that. Plus, when the pandemic happened, we also got CERB, which was just like government checks, basically. I don't know what they call it in America, which was great. I qualified for that. And I was getting $2,000 Canadian a month as well. So great. I just used it for general living expenses and saved the rest of it. So when I graduated university, I moved back to Toronto, which was kind of bittersweet because I imagined that I would get into my dream master's program. So a quick little side story, I applied to Columbia University, which is the top of the top for journalism in New York. I also always wanted to live in New York and I didn't get accepted. So I had to rejig what my life would be. And I was kind of all in or nothing. I was going to do a master's at Columbia or no master's at all, which I'm glad that I had that mindset because I think that doing a master's would have just really prolonged my journey to getting where I am today, which I think was inevitable. So that happened, moved back home. I had no job, all my student debt in my face and barely any money in my account. So I had to find a job and I didn't want to go out and get another serving job. I really wanted to focus on getting my big girl cushy corporate job, mostly because I knew that that's what my parents wanted me to do. And I felt as well that that was part of the script and I needed to fulfill it, which is why I'm so passionate about the way that I speak about work and jobs now, because there is no one right way to do things. And I think that you can be really strategic and create an amazing life if you just think in a way that aligns with you and or outside of the script that you've been given. So I was applying to a bunch of jobs, LinkedIn, Indeed, the whole nine, and it was crickets. But thankfully at university, I was doing a lot of networking. I made sure each prof that I had knew who I was and I had conversations with them and I would try my best to just be a good student, ask questions. So I wasn't just miscellaneous random student that they didn't really remember. I wanted to be a student they remembered. Because of that, when I graduated, a lot of profs would reach out to me for internships or gigs that they had. So a lot of times if you aren't in university or you're going to university or you didn't experience in this university, there will be projects that the schools will fund and they'll give teachers a budget for an internship. In Canada, it was around 20 USD an hour, which was really great. And you would just fulfill the tasks that they had for the projects. The projects could range from interviewing students. It could be research. It could be related to your industry. So for me, because I was in journalism, it usually had to do with something in the journalism field to some extent. So thankfully at the time when I got back home and I was getting no's for all the jobs, 2 profs reached out to me for internships. And then I also ended up getting an internship from LinkedIn. So it wasn't ideal because it wasn't a full-time job, but I still wasn't fully sure that because I didn't get accepted into Columbia, I really reevaluated my mindset on what I wanted to do with my life. And when I was really thinking about journalism, I didn't feel that I wanted to do it anymore. So while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I thought just doing this internship would be good because it would help me figure out if it's really not something I want to do and maybe I would be able to explore other things. So I got this interview at this niche magazine. It was 17 USD an hour. And then I had another internship at Canada's top magazine. Now, I wasn't doing anything big like writing news articles, but it still got me in the door. And I was really proud of that. And it was really chill too. It was all from home as well. So I was just on my laptop doing that. And that was around $20 an hour. And then I had another ad hoc internship that came over from when I was still in university. That was still ongoing after I graduated. That was around 17 an hour. So I was doing all of that. It wasn't crazy hours, but all of that was allowing me to pay the bills and keep my bank account decent so I could still go out, live, and I didn't feel like a complete bum because I didn't have a job. I want to reflect on the internship that I had at the time. So it was for the niche magazine. They had me writing articles. I was interviewing people, journalistic work, which was great. But I learned basically while doing that I didn't like it. Thankfully, the owner of the magazine was an amazing sweetheart who saw the best in me and she gave me a lot of freedom. So she also allowed me to do Instagram content, which I started to like. In hindsight, it was horrible. The work that I was doing for her was probably great because she's like a boomer. I didn't know how to use Canva. What's Canva, you know? But I was just going crazy and just trying to tell her, you got to post on Instagram and people got to know about your magazine. And that was a good time because I really learned how businesses worked and I got to be creative and I opened my eyes to the world of marketing. I did one marketing class in university and the only reason I did it was because we had one or two electives in our last year. So I was in a very intense program at my university. It was a double major in journalism and humanities, and they chose all of your credits for you ahead of time so you could fulfill getting the degree in that program. So I didn't have much leeway, which was good and bad because the class I was forced to take really elevated me, my writing, my intellect, whatever. But I wish I had slightly more freedom. But you know what? All of the things I learned now that I do in marketing, completely self-taught. So I guess I didn't really need to pay to learn it in university. So it's interesting. So we had the magazine, we had the internships from my university. When I was in university, I was that girl that was connecting with people that I thought were cool or interesting. I don't know what really got into me because I wouldn't say that's necessarily my nature, but I think I was slightly more extroverted in university, and especially when I knew it was ending and I just wanted to make the most out of my time. So as an example, when COVID happened and we were in a lot of Zoom classes, if I just saw someone's name on the Zoom call, I would just like type their name on Instagram and follow them if they looked like they would be not weirded out if I followed them. And honestly, that really worked for me. And one of them actually introduced me to this media group in Toronto, a nonprofit organization that I ended up starting my freelance journey with. At the time, I didn't call it freelance work, but it was. I was doing a lot of free work for them in the beginning. And then eventually they started to pay me, let's say 50 Canadian dollars to do an article, or 100 Canadian dollars to do a bundle of articles, or email marketing, because I decided to tell them, hey, I really am interested in marketing. And my internship at the magazine is ending soon. And I would love if I could try this out. Like, do you guys have an email funnel? Why are you guys not posting more on Instagram? I was just trying to test my skills, and I was just so interested in everything that I was learning from consuming content online about digital marketing. So I just asked if I could try things, and they had a bit of funding and they would just pay me here and there. And because I was so passionate about it, I think it put me in their good books. And then anytime they ever had an idea, they would come to me. And this is why networking is important, but also you have to be equally passionate and skilled. If you're not skilled, you need to be passionate. You can't have one or the other. Like, you can't be lax and just like about doing work and then expect people to come to you or give you opportunities, especially if you're unskilled. If you're skilled, you can be a little bit like, I don't really know if I want to do this, and people will still beg you to work with them. But if you're unskilled, you need to have that passionate edge. So I was doing all of those things all at once, and it was great. It took up all of my time, and I was learning what I didn't like and what I liked, and I knew what I liked was marketing, and I was nervous about the future, but I was just excited about where I was at. I did feel a little bit of insecurity because I had to move back home. I always thought that after university, I would be off on my own and have money and be able to have my own apartment like I do now, but we're here now, and I definitely was not ready for that kind of responsibility then. I needed to go through the phases that I went through, which I'm going to talk about. But that was a very instrumental period because it was a period of trial and error. And I often meet a lot of people, even my close friends, who feel like they don't know what they're passionate about, or they don't want to know what they want to do with their life. I still don't know what I want to do with my life, but I just do what feels aligned in the moment. And I try a bunch of things. Like in that period, especially, this was like half a year of stuff. And I did a jillion things in that time. And I think knowing what you don't want to do is equally as important. And you can only figure that out if you actually try things. So people can give you a list of things like this video, or a list of jobs that you could potentially do, or something that you might be good at, but you will never know until you try. And you don't have to try for 6 months, but you at least have to try it for a little and see, get your hands dirty a bit. So eventually the internship ended, and we're getting into like mid to end 2021 now. The internships are still there, but they're about to end. The university internships, the niche magazine internship is done now. So I had a little bit extra free time. The nonprofit that I was doing a lot of the free and then eventually a little freelance work for was focused on media, especially Toronto media, pop culture. I fell down that path. And while I enjoyed it, it felt like I was falling into a trope that made too much sense. The young, hip Black girl who's in the know with the culture. You know what I mean? It's not that's bad, but it never felt aligned. I also hated knowing too much. Like, I don't want to know that Drake is in Toronto and not in Miami on Thursday. It reminds me of when I was in university. In one of our journalism classes, we had an in-class assignment, and the assignment was figure out where Justin Bieber is right now. Crazy. Literally figure out where he is right now by using social media stalking tactics. Like, that's what we learned. As a journalist, you need to get proof. So you need to find proof and then be able to like write about it in an objective way, blah, blah, blah. And it just never felt right. Like, it's just kind of odd. I don't want to know I don't want to stalk Justin Bieber. I don't want to know so much about what's going on in pop culture. In fact, I don't watch the news at all now. So I was really, really grappling with the idea that I did not like being this pop culture person. Obviously, I was on TikTok and I was seeing my algorithm was all money TikTok. So I saw a post about print on demand, which is similar to drop shipping in the sense where you are selling products on Etsy that you can use a third party to print things on. So let's say Christmas t-shirts with matching names. You can get a blank t-shirt from a third party. Like there's a company called Gelato. When someone makes an order, they will automatically print it on the t-shirt for you and then ship it out to them. So you don't have to have it at your house. You don't have to have a print machine and they'll do it. That's an example. You could do it with jewelry. There's a range of things. You can also just drop ship on Etsy. So I fell into that and I actually started a store. I vividly remember the day I started the Etsy store. It was like a gloomy day. I did my internship work. I went on a bike ride. I came home. It was a Friday night and I was like, I have nothing else to do but get this money and I'm about to do that. So I decided to build the Etsy store, forgot about it. Like I went on with my life. And then 2 weeks later, maybe a week and a half, I heard a cha-ching on my phone and that cha-ching would change my life forever because I had just made $50 for literally spending 2 hours building out an Etsy store and someone else would package and ship out the product that I was selling for me. Didn't know that was possible. And it just never stopped. I kept getting sales. I kept optimizing. I was learning SEO. I was understanding how to market by making the thumbnails and pictures on Etsy. I became obsessed with Etsy. And then my feed started to get filled with e-com people. And I was like, what is this world? And I kept making more money. I had a $10,000 Canadian month and I continued making money until eventually my store got shut down. And it was actually so painful because my store got shut down the day after I told my parents, because this had been, my internships had then ended. I was still doing the media work with the nonprofit, but I had no proper job. And my parents were like really hoping I was still applying. And I told them I was still applying, but I had made the decision when I realized what was possible and how you could make money on the internet so naively that I was not going to apply for any more jobs because I can find another way to make money that felt more aligned. And then the day after my store got banned. So it's like I was sustaining myself more than I would have at a typical job with the money I was earning, just because the profit margins were insane, honestly, like 50% before taxes, which is crazy. So yeah, for that period of time, Etsy was making me 2K to 8K per month. It was great, but it just didn't feel aligned with me because I knew that I didn't want to sell cheap products to people on Etsy for the rest of my life. Like that didn't really feel fulfilling. And I just had this drive and zest in me that I want to get out, kind of like the work I'm doing now really allows that. And it's crazy because I think most 22-year-olds would probably be like, this is great. I'm just going to keep trying to make that money, which makes sense and is cool. But I care more about how I feel, not just about how much I'm making. That's always been very, very important to me. So actually, I ended up investing into like drop shipping courses after my store got shut down because I was like, maybe I can build a brand on Shopify. I would drop ship first and then I would build a product. And I created this whole storyline and I wasted a lot of money doing that. And it was stupid and wasted my time. But as soon as I started Etsy and as soon as it started working for me, I started posting my journey on TikTok, not because I saw that I could monetize from it at the time. I didn't really understand that, but I just felt like posting content. I remember the guy that I was talking to at the time, you should post on TikTok. You could post just like this girl that you watched who taught you how to do Etsy with her TikToks. And I was like, you're right. And I posted TikToks. They're so cringe now, but that was great because it led me into 2022, which was my Etsy store was banned. I decided I didn't really want to do the drop shipping thing anymore. So I just had my TikTok account and my realization that I could freelance, which was great. So at the time, I think I had around 20 to 30K on TikTok and I would get brand deals from companies like Gelato that I mentioned. This is not sponsored. Obviously, I don't do print on demand anymore, but that money was so good when I was getting those little brand deals on TikTok because these companies had so much money. I was posting content and I realized, hey, these brands are reaching out to me, but also because I was talking about marketing adjacently, I would have business owners be like, hey, can you help me? I have an Etsy store. Like, can you help me make money from it? And I would do these $30 Calendly calls, which at the time I cannot believe I was doing $30 Calendly calls. Why was I doing that? But I realized that things that I found super intuitive when it came to marketing, people were really struggling with. So I just decided to like dive deep into it, learn more about it. I was learning about marketing. I was reading marketing books. I was watching YouTube videos. I realized that because of my skill sets from journalism school, my own personality, and my experience with Etsy, copywriting was something that I would be good at. I didn't buy a copywriting course. I just learned it. And then I was doing it at the media company. I asked if I could do it as well. So I would do it there. And then I just made a website and called myself a copywriter. transparency for the brand deals, I would get paid for bundles of videos. So let's say 2 to 4 TikTok videos over a month, I would get paid 2,000 USD. And then I was doing those Calendly calls for $30 an hour. Those didn't really add up. Maybe in a good month, I would make $100 from them, but I wasn't doing that many. And then I would do my copywriting services. So I had packages that ranged from 500 to 2,500, sometimes 3,000 Canadian, because I was so shy and I didn't want to charge much, but they would take me a long time to do. So it would be like 5 pages of website copy or a bundle of emails or something like that. And all of that really came from inbound or Upwork. So I was on Upwork. I was getting clients on Upwork and they would pay me like off of Upwork. That's really common practice, even though Upwork doesn't like that because it saves both sides on fees. So that was my journey then. So I did that for a long time. So I was stuck in that period for a very long time, freelancing in a way where it wasn't consistent. And I was definitely relying on brand deals to ensure that I had enough money to pay for everything I needed to and like actually have a proper income. So that period of time is literally exactly why I built She Freelances, because it was just what they call the feast and famine cycle. I constantly had to find new clients because I didn't have clients on retainer. I was just doing one-off projects. I didn't like that inconsistency. And if it weren't for the brand deals, I wouldn't have been able to sustain myself. So it was very important time in my life because it made me understand the mechanism of business and cash flow and how freelancing could be realistic for me to do long term. If I didn't go through that period, I wouldn't be so adamant on getting retainers, creating an offer that gets you consistent income over time, cash flow, blah, blah, blah. And I likely wouldn't be here posting YouTube videos too. But it was good for the money. I was making minimum 2K a month from brand deals every single month. And then I was getting 1 to 2 clients a month from freelancing that would range from 500 to 3K. So I was definitely making more money than I would have made at an entry-level journalism job, which gave me enough confidence to know that I was doing something good and it would get me far. So that was a formative year, taught me what I wanted, and I decided to go into 2023 full throttle, making freelancing a sustainable source of income, one that didn't feel unstable, one that made me feel secure. And I did not want to be a content creator. I knew that for a fact. I didn't like the inconsistency of the timeline of payments. I didn't like showing up online for another business all the time. I wanted to do it for myself. And I also saw other women doing that. And I knew that I was this close to getting there because I was already getting paid for my freelance services. I had also sustained a couple clients from doing one-off projects from 2022. They really liked my work and would just come back to me for other work, which was great. So definitely if you're a beginner watching this in anything you do, just be really good at what you do. Put your best foot forward and do good work because it can take you really far. And that definitely helped me a lot. So I was freelancing in 2023, but I became very intentional. I decided to switch my offer from just copywriting to doing email marketing because to me, it made sense because businesses always sent emails. It was based off of copywriting. I just needed to learn more of the fundamentals of email marketing. Again, I never took an email marketing course. I just watched YouTube videos. I would do free work or would do cheap work from Upwork projects. And then I went out and I tried to get an email marketing retainer. My baseline price was 3K. That happened. The media company that I was working for got a big check and they wanted to revamp their marketing frameworks and brand messaging and stuff. And because I had been doing that for a year, I'm like, guys, you trusted me. I've been working on my copy. Now you guys got a check and you're going to pay me. It was great because you can likely find the company and I'm not sure how transparent I can be. I will say that it was over 10,000 Canadian dollars that I got to do this work. That took me probably 2 months. And then I invested that money into a big boy course from this, I would say, direct response marketing bro on Twitter. His whole program at the time was centered around freelance copywriters who wanted to go from 3K to 5K a month to 10K a month, which is exactly where I was at. Literally, it was like, wow, this is exactly what I need. Take my money. It's the most I ever spent on a program, but it's the best investment I ever made. And within 90 days, I was earning $10,000 a month, not purely because it's some interesting, insane thing that I didn't know before from the program, but because of the discipline that it taught me. It showed me what I had to do to actually get there. It made me act in the version of myself that needed to get there and be surrounded by people who were also doing the same thing. Ultimately, I changed what I was offering. So I was doing the email marketing, and then eventually at the time, paid creative strategy was really popping off as well, which is paid ad scripts. I talk about that in other videos. You can binge my playlist to figure all this tea out. But I realized that creative strategy was even more profitable for freelancers because ads, brands spend money, a lot of money on ads to make revenue. So if you can make a good ad, you can make a brand a lot of money, and therefore they will pay you a lot of money. And one of my clients actually that I was with since the Upwork days actually was like, hey, you want to do ads for us? And I was like, yes, I really do. And I did them. They actually performed really well, got me my foot in the door, kept making them, started pitching myself as a creative strategist, end up signing my second biggest retainer client, which was 5,000 USD. And I continued to sign multiple clients, but I was burned out because I was like, oh, you can just like make 5K USD from an agency writing paid ads. Great. I'm gonna work for 3 agencies. And I was working like a dog, but I was making good money and I was really happy. And I was no longer worried about stability. I was just worried about stacking the dough, which was great. In 2024, that was my era of full control. I knew I had built up not only my income, but my skill set. I became a lethal creative strategist. My name was being thrown around within the founders communities I work with as an example of just how far doing good work could take you. The founders that I worked for were in their own communities and programs that they paid for. And sometimes people would ask them, oh, who's doing your ads? Who's doing your copy? And they would just say my name. And then I would just get an inbound and be like, hey, this founder from this community said this, that. And I would just get a $3,000 client without even having to have any proof of work. And that's honestly how I live now. My foot is really, really in the door now, which is amazing, but it took a lot of hard work to get there. I was up all night committing to figuring out how to make ads work, how to write better scripts, understanding marketing psychology. And while it was a lot of sacrifice, not going out with friends, doing stuff like that, it was the best thing I ever did. So I was able to charge more. End of 2023, I actually signed my first 10K client. This was a client I started off doing work, I believe, around 6K a month. And then we continued to restructure our package in the way they wanted to work because one of my ads started performing really well. And then I signed them and then they eventually restructured up to 10K. So 2024, 10K. So I was making 10K a month from this one client. I started doing more consulting work as well. That's when you'll see that I was starting to post more high level marketing and stuff. Just, I felt like I needed to because I was like, oh, I'm a marketer now for real. So I'm going to just tell everybody what I know. And it was actually honestly a good move because I did get some good inbound 7-figure clients from there. People would just book consulting from my website. Like I think it's like 400 USD Calendly call for an hour. And I would just share everything I knew that I was doing with the other brands and my ideas that I would have for their brand if I were to go in. Sometimes they would come on to a retainer package after if they were happy with that. So all of 2024, I was making between 15K to 30K, working really hard. I made this the year of like, okay, I feel really stable. I just want to get undeniable. So over time, I can expand my career options. I really did like the consulting calls. I could imagine myself maybe building my own business one day, or I was open to all the possibilities. So I wanted to future proof by just getting my portfolio really good. So I just worked on getting my clients money, which turns out makes you a lot more money because they don't want to lose you when they trust you. For context, in the beginning of 2024, I was working 2 to 3 hour days. The first 6 months were actually really hectic because I was moving my life to London. So I was really busy. I was also trying to spend a lot of time with family before I left. The second half of the year was really, really busy. But in the beginning of the year, I was sustaining this income working with so little time. So it just goes to show that the amount of time that you work does not have to be reflective of how much you make. It just matters the impact you're having. And that's my whole philosophy of She Freelances and how I teach women, which leads to the end of 2024. I was reading this article about freelancing and how we need to change the name from freelancing because people don't really respect freelancers and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, bro, who cares? Like, I be freelancing. I be making money. I'm living my best life. Like, I don't think we need to change the name. I just think people need to know that you can just freelance. You can just not have a middleman and provide a service to a client and make good money from that and live your merry life. And actually, the way the world is set up now with technology and AI actually allows that. And the world will continue to move in that direction because business can be leaner and they don't have to have all these overheads and all the things that I say in all my videos. It just got me really heated. And I decided that I wanted to create a place to basically say everything that I had learned over the past few years in figuring out how to freelance in a way that aligned with me, felt feminine, but I actually was making money. Because I think a lot of female freelancers, they like what they do, but they don't be making money. And it's like, it doesn't have to be like that. You just need to understand the little nuances that can take you from hourly work to big retainer work, which I talk about all the time. So end of 2024, I started She Freelances. The whole point around the name is that a lot of times when they were talking about me or other freelancers, I would hear them say, oh, she just freelances. And it's like, no, actually I freelance. She freelances, full stop. Thank you very much. And I make a lot of money, probably more than you Not that it's a competition, but it's like there's this weird vibe around freelancing. I'm so confident in the idea that freelancing is a future of work. So started this in 2024. And contrary to what some people may think, 90% of my earnings come from freelancing at this current time that I'm filming this video in June of 2025. She Freelances is still a baby business. Right now, I have a community of 40 women inside. It's a higher ticket program for people who are already freelancing but want to scale. So they have a skill set. Maybe they've made some money here and there, or they just left their job and they're looking to go full time. I work with them pretty much one-to-one because it's such a small community of people who actually show up on the calls every week. And there's a course, there's all the things in there. There's leads, there's the networking, all of the things that got me to where I am. It's like a boxed in place to allow that to happen times 10. It's been so fruitful to watch it grow. I literally thought of the idea from scratch, worked with an agency to do the branding, built out the actual course. I've been getting on weekly calls for the past, 7 months of my life. And I've been able to watch so many women earn their first 3K retainer, 10K retainer. It's been so beautiful. I honestly don't even have the words for how crazy it feels to just see something you thought of turn into a reality and then impact other people. And I'm currently in the works of rejigging it a little bit. And now with my YouTube platform and just been graced with the ability to reach more people, I do want to have a sort of like an annual membership where not only I get to hop on these calls, but I could get women who do freelancing in a different capacity. So maybe not so marketing related, or maybe in a completely different field that I don't know, like they're a stylist or they do Pinterest marketing or they do something just completely different from me. They can come in and they can share their wisdom. And also I want to make it more financially accessible to people. It's a business. At the end of the day, it has to make money. So my ultimate goal is that the business makes money from partnerships and brand deals through YouTube and through newsletters and other things. And for the community, it's free. But as we get to that point, I'm thinking of rejigging it so it's more a mid-tier annual membership rather than a high ticket 6 months like Accelerator as it is now, which I'm really excited about. So at the current moment, I'm earning multi-six figures as a freelancer. I have a range of clients. I do consulting and ad hoc work for 2 agencies based in London. I am the head of marketing at a 7-figure intimate care brand founded by 2 Swedish sisters. Then I'm a consultant and marketing strategist for another 7-figure brand, which is a skincare brand for women over 40. I also specifically do creative strategy at a miscellaneous home care brand with an Australian-based founder. So that's kind of my general setup. I'll do other consulting or one-off projects here and there, which can range from 300 USD to 5,000 USD. It really just depends on what it is. And then of course I have earnings from She Freelances would be any brand deals from this YouTube, as well as obviously any students that buy in. And then eventually this membership that I'm planning to switch to. The rest of 2025 to be announced. Who knows what I'm going to get up to? So excited for what the future holds. Honestly, the possibilities are endless and I'm so open and so excited for what the future holds. If you watched all of this, I hope it inspired you and gave you a sense of peace that life will just continue to fall into place if you just stay curious and make intentional decisions and just try and become undeniable. Be good at what you do. If you do that, you will never, ever, ever struggle to go get paid.